Thalay Sagar is a 6,904 metre mountain in northern India, which had been climbed before by North Face routes, but we were looking at the southeast ridge. I've not done anything of that scale. Something that's always been on my radar, but I've just never really made it happen or had the opportunities or created the opportunities to do it really. I tried to get as fit as possible, and I suppose I've been preparing for it for years really, in terms of just climbing and being out and about in the hills and doing a lot of Scottish climbing and alpine as well. Definitely pretty excited and keen to get out there and get stuck in with it, but definitely apprehensions about how I would deal with that sort of altitude, fitness, technical ability, and particularly about we just really didn't know much about the route. In terms of accessing the mountain, it's reasonably straightforward. Fly to Delhi, 2 or 3 days by road from there. You end up in Rishikesh, which is the road head, and then we spent 4 days walking in from there. The whole thing felt like quite a lot of exploration for me, and visiting a new place and new culture as well. Guy Buckingham, he'd seen the Thalay Sagar on a previous trip, got some photos of it and was pretty inspired by it, I think, and keen to go back and do it. Guy was just amazing at planning things. It was definitely, he was the leader, which was great for us really, because he just seems to enjoy that side of things.
Snow erect here somewhere, isn't there?
Yeah,
what do you think?
this one here.
I think that's a ridge.
And then Mike Pescod, who's a British mountain guide working out of Fort William in Scotland.
But if you look on that one,
At least it's not as steep as it looks.
yeah, it's not as steep as it looks.
Yeah.
And also,
Once we got established and set up at base camp, we set off up Kedadome, which is a sort of just over 6,000 metre peak. That was great for some acclimatisation. It was sort of a glacier type plod, really steep snow. From there we got our first proper views of the southeast ridge, and we just spent an evening just trying to work out the best line to access the ridge.
Follow those snow slopes up. Okay, there's a bit I can't see yet behind that big black lump of rock. I think that could be easy terrain all the way to the ridge.
Yeah.
It brings us on fairly early. The second option is to head up the big wide open snow slope and pick up that obvious corner, which would get us a bit further along the ridge.
and that's the buttress with the finger coming down.
It was just sort of over 1,000 metres of ascent from the head of the glacier up onto the side of the ridge to actually get established on it. There was just so many unknowns, I think, about the ridge. We really didn't know whether it was going to be like a grade 3 scramble or full-on technical steep climbing. It was so hard to tell. I think we were out 4 days. That was the first time I'd been up to that sort of height, and definitely felt it. After our acclimatisation, we had a few days rest. So we tried to come up with a strategy really. And in terms of the weather at that time of year out there, Guy had assured us that, there's no precipitation for the whole month really. But the reality was it pretty much, once we were at base camp, seemed to snow every afternoon. At one point it put down 0.5 metre of snow. For the southeast ridge we need a pretty good forecast for a route of that length. Just trying to find a big enough break in the weather really. We planned on 8 days on it. The plan was alpine, carrying everything with us, setting off and going. We packed some bags, which seemed very heavy to me. I don't really know, we could have got many lighter. And then we had a day walking up the glacier.
I'm telling you, when we get up there, that'll be like fucking ledge.
Guy had this system, which he was fairly keen on, where we just got a pretty small 2-person single skin sort of tent that we were using. And he'd convinced us that there's plenty of space. He's used that before. He's done that before with a team of 3, which was fine. But heading up there, he sort of had this little comment like, yeah, I think you two are a bit bigger than the previous 2 partners that we had. So it was properly a squash.
All right.
I was confident when we set off that we'd be okay. It felt like quite a strong team, strong individuals, climbing ability, experience, and we just seemed to be working fine together, so that was great.
Nice one, Guy. How's it going over there, Mike?
It's all good.
Comfy?
Very comfy, very warm. Just filling the water bottles, ready for tomorrow. I'll get some dinner.
Excellent.
Set up the bivvy on day 2 and then headed off again early in the morning. And even at that stage, we didn't know whether there was a way through the steep ground. It just worked out that this just had a little way through and up a little ridge, and yeah, we popped out onto the col with amazing views. It was just like, wow. There was a nice platform there that we just dug in and got the tent up. The ridge just started off very steeply from there, but we were already 3 days into it at that stage. So, yeah.
Nice one, Guy. Breakfast. Yeah, got it.
The next morning, we're a bit sort of jaded, I think, by the exertion already of getting to that. And the tricky thing was deciding which line to try and take on this buttress. We tried to avoid the steep section by traversing round to the left with a few technical moves and then some easy snow slopes, but just got shut down with these like overhanging granite above us, and had to reverse that and come back to the col. Guy set off up the steeper buttress and got himself around on these quite technical lay-backing moves off axes and onto this little ledge, which just looks so out there. It was just unbelievable. You're looking down at, yeah, a good 1,000 metres straight down to where you came from a couple of days ago. It still didn't quite get us onto the crest of the ridge, so I sort of followed that pitch.
Yeah. I'm gonna do this pitch on red, yeah?
Set off across, but the issue we got really was that the ridge was quite snow covered, and what I could see was just these granite slabs covered in snow. We'd got like another day and a half to do the next 2Ks. The difficulties were just much more than we'd hoped for really on the initial section. The weather was coming in again, the forecast wasn't quite as good as we'd hoped for, and we decided that we weren't going to be getting too much further really.
Well, I have to say, Guy, that's a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Once past that point, the only retreat lines would be either back down the ridge, which would be pretty involved because it's quite technical, or off the side, which would be 1,000 metres of unknown. The decision from there was that to go back down to the col, set up and have the night there. That evening it dumped with snow, and that sort of sealed the decision, I think, really. And the next morning we bailed off back down the route. Once we were back down from the route, I think we were all in agreement that we didn't really know what would need to be different. Obviously, if there's less snow on the ridge, that would make a massive difference. But to get those conditions, it'd mean there'd be less snow on the approach, which would make that quite a lot harder. And we'd still been out 5 days. There wasn't too much talk about going back up, really. But we'd still had quite a bit of time because we'd allowed a fair bit of time for the trip. What can we do now? And just round the corner, and we'd walk past it, is Shivling, which is obviously an absolutely iconic mountain. And we were like, well, let's just go around there and we'll do that. Probably with the idea of like, what can go wrong? I'm sure we're going to get up to the top of that and feeling pretty confident about it all. Terrain where we could just move together on, but it was plastered in snow. Oofed. Leg. There was this Serac band, which looked like it was going to have some pretty steep ice on it, but it all seemed to be in the bag. We were quite acclimatised by that stage. Set off a few tricky pitches up these Seracs, thinking, yeah, we're through this. And then we sort of realised that the Serac band was still above us, and we tried 4 different options of getting through it, and we just couldn't really find a feasible line through it. It was just a realisation that, we're going down again, and yeah, that was it. Not making it to the summit was not as big a deal as I thought it would have been. If you'd have asked me that before we went, I'd have said, yeah, I'll be absolutely gutted if we don't get to the top or something. But there's so many other amazing aspects to the trip. Just being in those mountains, the climbing, being out with good friends and enjoying that aspect of it. It was the whole experience, and massively outweighed the idea of getting to a summit.